Welcome to Pet Sitter Confessional. We're brought to you by Time to Pet and the National Association of Professional Pet Sitters, or NAPS. Today we are really excited to have Dan Reitman, owner of Dan's Pet Care, on the show to talk about his journey into opening a facility and what it's like balancing the obligations and duties from running a dog walking and pet sitting service, as well as a doggy daycare and boarding facility, and kind of how he's made that his own spin to make it unique and make it a different approach. But Dan, I'm super excited to have you on the show. It's been a hot minute since you've been on, so really excited to get caught up with all the exciting stuff that you've been doing and how busy that you've been. But for those who aren't familiar with you or your work or haven't listened to the previous episodes, can you please tell us a little bit more about all that you do?
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you, Colin, for having me back. I always enjoy our conversations and I always enjoy sharing with the pet care community. All right, a little bit of a background about me. So I started Dan's Pet Care November. It'll be 15 years ago. I was working as a vet assistant at a local animal hospital. I had dropped out of college. No idea what I wanted to do with my life. And it was originally called Dan's Dog Walking and Pet Sitting. So I started a small dog walking company, worked as a solo dog walker for about a year, and I started to grow a team. Fast forward to today, we've got about 5,000 clients. I have a team of about 90 employees. We service a large majority of Long Island and Queens. And recently we have moved into the daycare and cage-free boarding industry. So that is what we are here to talk about today.
Yeah, we are, and there's it's so interesting because your story. There's so much built up with the dog walking, with the pet care side, that the shift into the facility side, the brick and mortar side. I'm really curious about what your thinking was, what your decision process was for moving in that direction. And obviously, you're still keeping the dog walking, all that stuff still running. So you branched off into this. What was that decision like?
This is something that has been on my radar for, I'd say, almost the entire time I've been in business. It's always been something I've wanted to do. I've been approached in the past by, people who wanted to partner with me. I've explored many different opportunities, and just was never the right time. And I've always been kind of like the solo entrepreneur, never loved partnerships. I have had other companies where I've had some fantastic partners, just never in this industry because I'm very, very particular about how everything is done. But yeah, so pre-pandemic, there was a doggy daycare that was in our service area that they were looking to have somebody come in and take over. And so I was like, this sounds like a great opportunity. I sat down with them. We got pretty far into the talks and to the point where we were negotiating our lease and everything. And it just wasn't a good fit. So I was like, all right, well, we're not doing this, but we're doing this. We are going to open a facility. So during the pandemic, we looked at, I can't even tell you how many properties, but we finally landed on this massive warehouse over in Glen Cove. And I was like, the space is perfect. The landlord was great. And yeah, so it's always been something I've wanted to do. My long-term goal, and this is a large step in that direction, is again, not to compare myself to Jeff Bezos by any means, but my goal is I want to create the Amazon of pet care. I want to be that one-stop shop because I know how hard it is for pet parents when it comes to finding people you trust to train your dog, to walk your dog, to board your dog, to take care of your pets from a veterinary perspective. Our goal is eventually to cover all of those services under one umbrella. And now we've added a few more to our repertoire of everything that we offer to our clients. And now all that's left is the veterinary side of things, but that'll be a podcast about 5 or 6 years from now. But yeah, so this has always been something that's been on the radar. It's been an immense learning experience for me. I've never had any personal experience working in doggy daycares, but I had very specific ideas on how I wanted it done, and I was able to put together a team of people who were passionate and had tons of immense years of incredible experience doing this. So it's been years in the making, but it's something that we're very, very excited to be having live now.
Well, a part of that discussion, the story that you had there was there was a part where you were approached with partnerships with working with other people, but for you, you said you liked keeping it in house, and I think that that is a really important decision that we as business owners we've got to make at a lot of different stages. We get approached with opportunities, with options to work with people. So for you, why is it important to keep that more in-house approach with your business?
Short answer, Colin, I have control issues. No, but joking aside, I I believe that the more of the industry that's existed in the daycare and catering in the boarding space is a little bit dated. And that is places where dogs are sitting in kind of dingy kennels or they're sitting in a crate most of the day. And I personally never loved the idea of that. All the people that wanted to partner with me, they wanted to do these kennels and runs. And I'm not knocking anyone who does it because I know everyone in our industry, for the most part, is incredibly passionate about what they do. And they really want to make sure that the dogs have a fantastic experience. But for me, the biggest thing was I wanted to create something different. I wanted to create a new experience for pet parents. And I think I have operated as a solo entrepreneur, as a business owner, without any conflicting pushback from a equal for a very long time, that I had an idea of what I wanted to do. And I really wanted to make sure I could see that through. Now, I'm not sitting here saying I've done this on my own by any means. I've had an incredible team of people. My management team has been immensely helpful in executing this, but I think the company as a whole, we're very aligned on a very specific vision on really focusing on our core values and making sure that we as a company continue to perpetuate those core values through the work that we're doing. But we get approached constantly. I'm sure many of you get those emails from private equity firms talking, we want to buy into your business or this or that. And man, the day that I come on here and say that I've sold to a private equity firm, I will probably be on a boat somewhere and I will have sold it for an obscene amount of money. But the big thing for me is I will lose money for years to fulfill and push forward a goal that we have on service execution and making sure things are done the way we believe it should be done when it comes to the quality of care and the experience for dogs. That's the biggest thing for me, is they're not just numbers on a spreadsheet. These are living things. And it's so important to me that we do it the right way and not try to find the fastest way only to profitability. I think there is a way to balance both. And that's incredibly, incredibly important to me and my team.
Well, and anytime you bring on a partner, whatever that is defined for you, whether it is an investment, whether it's another business that you're working with something on, that you said that phrase there of having that aligned on specific visions. And that's
Yes.
hard to do the more outside people that you bring in. And that's hard to do the more, sometimes it can make you stronger, make you think in different ways. But if you're not looking for that, there's really no reason to bring that in. If you go, no, this is how we want to do. The rest of management, the rest of the team is so in alignment with this, it doesn't make sense to bring somebody in who we've got to get caught up, who's going to sidetrack us down this road, and just being kind of, just steadfast, dedicated, and devoted to that pathway that you're walking down. And a lot of times as businesses, we don't have that vision. So it's hard to know how we can be dedicated to something if we don't have that vision, don't know the road we're walking down. So to go, well, we need to keep this in-house so that we can stay focused. And that's really, what it sounds like you were working on, of going, no, we know what direction we're headed. It doesn't make sense for us to bring in partners when we can just, keep moving forward little by little.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the partnership, and I'm not knocking partnerships either. I think depending on where you're at in your business and in your journey of, creating whatever it is, your vision, you got to know what's right for you. I know for me personally, I haven't had a quote unquote job since I was 20 years old. I've been doing this since I was 22. And for me, it's been, this is my life. My wife likes to joke that she is my mistress and the business is my wife. Partnerships are like a marriage. When you're getting into a business partnership with somebody, this is somebody who they're in the bank account. They're in the meetings. Whatever equity they have in the company, they have that much of an influence on decision making. And so whoever it is, if you do partnership, if you do open to a partnership with somebody, you got to be super sure that you are aligned in the things that matter. You're going to argue with people for sure. I mean, like I argue with my managers about things, but you obviously don't want to be surrounded by a bunch of yes men. You want to be surrounded by people who will challenge you, but you always got to make sure at the end of the day, it's those core values, those key elements of whatever your vision is, those have to align. So for me personally, I knew at this point in building the business, bringing on a partner just wasn't what I was looking for. And again, just knowing you got to know what you want. And sometimes it is difficult to figure that out. Again, I've been obsessing over this for 15 years. I eat, sleep, and breathe this company. And it's something that I'm incredibly passionate about, and making sure that we just create fantastic experiences for dogs, and that pet parents are happy and they feel safe with us. And, because I always like to say, we're not in the pet care business. We're in the peace of mind business. You could have your dog go anywhere. You could drop your dog off at this facility. You could have your dog go to this dog walker. But with us, our guarantee is peace of mind. No matter what, your dog is getting the level of care that you pay for and you expect with us, because at the end of the day, worst case scenario, I'm showing up at your house myself to walk your dog, or I'm going to stay at the facility overnight. Like, nobody in this company is bigger than any job. I remember the first 2 years when we launched our pooper scooper services, I was out doing it every day because I wanted to understand the ins and outs of what we did. And it was the same thing with the daycare. I think I did the first almost 3 months of overnight shifts. So I would sleep maybe 3 hours at some point in the morning. I'd be at the facility overnight. I'd work all afternoon. So I was working about 18, 19 hours a day for the first 3 months that we were doing it. But again, I wanted to understand every single aspect of what we were doing. So that was very, very important to me.
Well, and you mentioned, you didn't have a background or experience in the facility side, in the doggy daycare, in the boarding.
Yeah.
But what you did do is you went out and you hired people with that experience. And I think that's really crucial, where when we talk about keeping things in-house, we have to be humble enough and honest enough with ourselves to admit when we don't know everything. So we have to find the people that do and then bring them into the company. We do that first, as a business with a lot of CPAs and tax accountants or whatever that is, or administrative assistants. We bring that in various aspects of our business. But when we look to the power of hiring, this is where that gets so important in our businesses. The power of hiring is that I no longer have to be the expert in everything. I need to guide. I need to give the vision. I need to help people and manage them. But the expertise I can bring in-house, the expertise and wisdom and experience I can bring in to make our company better. And many times we get so hung up with people aren't going to do it as good as me. They're not going to make this important enough or whatever. Going, well, in this case, I don't know a single thing about this. So let me go learn and just know enough so I can recognize when somebody is an expert in this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, I'll walk into any house with any breed of dog, any animal, if it's aggressive, not aggressive. Worst case, I get bit. You know what I mean? Like, I'm comfortable with that. I'm very comfortable with the idea of having 30, 40, 50 dogs in a room was something that was very, very foreign to me. And it was something that I had to be like, okay, we got to bring in the right people. So I was very fortunate enough in building up towards opening this place, bringing in some people with incredible experience. So I had somebody, Joe, who's one of my most senior managers. We hired him. He ran a facility called Best in Show for years, and he helped grow them to a really, really large facility. And we have Amanda, who we brought in, who she ran actually a Dogtopia before. She used to work with Joe. And then we have our behaviorist, we have our lead trainer. So we had a lot of people with great experience. And then when we were first hiring all of our handlers, we weren't hiring anybody who didn't have experience. Everybody who joined our team, you had to come from a doggy daycare before. You couldn't have, because, I've been doing a lot of the interviews recently, and, more power to them. They're all lovely people. But if I hear one more person talk about their level of experience I love dogs, I am going to lose my mind. Because the love of dogs, it's not what you need. Like, it's one of the most important things for this job. But a love of dogs isn't going to sustain you when you need to be aware of specific body language in a play field, knowing the difference between healthy play and a dog that's being reactive, knowing the difference between, recognizing resource guarding, all these little things that you need to know, and not from like, oh, I grew up with dogs. Like, that's great. We could train you. And we've gotten to a point now where we can train team members, but like, man, hiring for that expertise is so important. Alex Hormozy was talking about this, how when you're in that $1 to $3 million range as a company, it is one of the toughest places in a business, because when you're below that, you don't have this massive, infrastructure where you have all these people and you're dealing with all these things. But when you're in that $1 to $3 million range, which we are so close to getting out of, you don't have the resources to hire the level of expertise you need for every single element of your company. Now, that being said, I was lucky enough to find some people who did have that expertise, who saw what my vision was, who want to be a part of that. So where we're at right now as a company is we are trying to bring, we have been building that team and making sure that these aren't people who are here just for a job. They want to be a part of building this company. Like, my goal is to open 100 locations. I want to open this nationally. I want to be in as many places as we can. And so I want people who align with me on that vision and want to be a part of creating that. And so, yes, I have to wear so many hats right now. Like before with the dog walking business, we got to a level of maturity where I was able to focus on more sorts of large partnership biz dev stuff. So partnering with large apartment buildings, focusing on media, working with, Farmer's Dog and all these other great brands. And so I was able to focus on that. And then boom, we open this place and I'm back to square one of like, I am doing all these things and I'm running around and I'm mopping floors and I'm doing all this stuff. And, it's kind of nice to be a novice again. It's nice to be at a place where I'm learning and I'm forced to grow. And, I'm able to kind of build this team, but not be starting from square one where I, with the dog walking, when I was 22, I had no idea what I was doing. Whereas now I know, before we opened, we had written up every single possible scenario you could run into, to the point where there was I'm using this term loosely, an earthquake in New York earlier this year. So it was like a 4.3 or something like that. But we had an actual SOP for what to do in an earthquake. And so the earthquake happened. My team knew exactly what to do. They checked the structure around the building. They made sure to check all the boxes. So, having the experience of building the dog walking business made it much easier for me to roll that into the opening and scaling of this current business.
Yeah, but being a novice again, as you were talking, that's what I was just about to jump in and talk about that, because we can become so complacent in our businesses where we think we know everything, and all of a sudden we become really comfortable in running our business, and it becomes quote unquote easy, and we begin to miss things. No, we can kind of get lackadaisical. We start kind of being more relaxed about things because, I've been here, done that. It's been 10 years. This is super easy. But from a personal development perspective, that's the business side. But personally, being placed back in that position, almost very intentionally on your part, going, no, I've got to dive in. I've got to learn all these aspects. What that does when we do that is it reminds ourselves, and it keeps our brain fluid, right? Keeps our brain open to new things. But we're not, as you said, starting brand spanking new. We're bringing all of our past experiences, but we're applying them in a different way. We're beginning to think outside the box. We're taking everything and putting it together, but we are starting from zero. And that just allows us to continue to learn and grow and make sure that we are engaged and active and focused on what our business is actually doing, instead of just kind of letting it ride off into the sunset. Have you heard of Time to Pet? Chris Ann from Raining Cats and Dogs has this to say.
Becoming a Time to Pet client has been a game changer for us. We can give our pet services clients real-time, cloud-based information they never imagined they'd be interested in. And most importantly, to me personally, I can better manage my company and look forward to more. And not a small thing, Time to Pet is responsive to my requests for new features and modifications to existing ones.
If you're looking for new pet sitting software, give Time to Pet a try. Listeners of our show will save 50% off your first 3 months by visiting timetopet.com/confessional.
Absolutely. When you said complacency, that word, complacency is death in business. I think the second you are like, I got this, everything is all good, prepare for stuff to catch on fire. Because I think that level of arrogance, like you said, is going to lead to things slipping. You are not going to be constant. You have to constantly be sharpening your tools. What we did in this industry 10 years ago to get business is completely different now than it was 20 years ago, 30 years, 30 years ago. 15 years ago when I opened, I was running ads in the yellow pages. Those of you who are new, that is a book that used to have phone numbers in it that we would have to look at. But yeah, I was doing that. Whereas now, we're focused on, obviously it's content marketing and this and that. There are so many things that you constantly have to do and challenge yourself with. And so my birthday passed in August. And so one of the things I do every year is I set birthday goals, as cheesy as that sounds. So a couple of days before my birthday, I will create a list of things that I want to accomplish within the year. Every year is lose 30 pounds, every single year. Get back in shape.
Yeah.
But it's usually a combination of personal goals, business goals, relationship goals, and things like that. And so one of the things that I add, the list gets longer and longer every year. But one of the big things I added this year was to do something that scared me. And I was like thinking about it as I wrote it. I'm like, well, everything scares me because this is terrifying. And, I took on a large loan to do this. So I essentially burned the boats. Like I didn't have an option to if this doesn't work out, no, I personally guaranteed a loan for a large amount of money. I have to make this work. There is nothing else. So I've gotten used to the fear and that challenge. So actually this past August, I went and I did ayahuasca for the first time. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, ayahuasca is it originates in the Amazon. These tribes discovered it's a combination of these two plants, and you drink it, and it causes very intense psychedelic experiences, but it works through a lot of emotional things. Now, I've been talking about doing this basically as long as I've done it, as long as I've known about it. So I've tried DMT before, but the ayahuasca was a very, very different experience, but I was terrified. I mean, absolutely terrified. So I was away on a family vacation and I was going to be going away for a weekend. So I'm driving to upstate New York to do it. And I remember in the car, I am on the verge of tears. I'm so scared because there is some dark stuff in my head and I don't know if I want to dive into there, to the point where I was thinking, I'm going to stay in a hotel for all weekend, tell my wife I did it, and then everything will be fine and nobody will be the wiser. And so, in preparation for this, there's a diet you have to follow. You have to do a lot of meditation. There's a lot of things you have to do to kind of prepare your mind and your body for it. So it's a very strict diet. There's a lot of limitations that you have to put on yourself in terms of adhering to this. And so I went into it. I tried to go into it with an open mind. And the shaman explains to you that ayahuasca, or they refer to it as the medicine, or they refer to her as grandmother. So ayahuasca is the grandmother of all of the psychedelic plant medicine. And so he says that ayahuasca it's a river, right? And your body is the canoe and your breath is your oar. So after, I've done meditation and things like that for years. I could be better with it. But I remember him saying, you can't fight the river. You have to breathe. You have to breathe through it. And so in the experience, there are times where it gets a little bit intense. And I remember I stopped. I'm seeing this beautiful vision, right? There were so many animals. Almost everything I experienced was animals. But in one of the visions that I saw, it was this explosion of the tree of life. So I'm seeing every animal that's ever existed, does exist, will exist. I'm watching evolution on a cellular level. It's an absolutely insane experience. And I started getting overwhelmed, and I'm holding my breath. And as I'm doing this, the tree, I'm watching this, the life, all of it starts to die and decay. And I'm like, this is getting scary. This is getting dark. This is what I was afraid of. And I remembered, you got to breathe. You got to breathe. And I took one big, and then this explosion of life. The tree bursts back into life and all this amazing stuff. And it goes back to like, whenever you are challenging yourself, whenever you are in these positions of taking on these things that scare you, whether it's, adding a new service to your business or expanding or taking on a partner, whatever it is, you have to have a control over your mind and being able to let go of the things that you can't control and go with things in a way that you need to be able to allow things to just happen. There's things we can control, control the controllables and breathe through the rest of it. So it showed me that a lot of the things that it talked to me about was she talks to you through it. I'm an incredibly impatient person. Anyone who's ever worked with me knows I'm impatient and I'm very intense. And I kept seeing these visions of clocks. And, it was basically telling me like, you need to be patient. You need to trust the process. You need to go through this and you need to not fight this so much because like, I'm sure many of the listeners out there experience depression and anxiety, and that anxiety can consume you. That anxiety is something that can eventually destroy you. If you let that anxiety control your life, you're not going to make good decisions. You're not going to experience the world the way you need to. And it's also going to ruin a lot of good experiences. I can tell you, like, you've made it this far, right? I remember, in terms of, and for those of you who are out there dealing with money stress, I run a multi-million dollar business. And trust me, these gray hairs that you can't see didn't come from nowhere. And the money stress is there, but it's important to remind yourself that you successfully made it through every single day. Every single day that you are still here and your business is still going, you have figured it out. And that's one of the things I have to remind myself when I'm faced with a new challenge or when I'm faced with a new problem. I figured it out every other time in the past, and I have figured out a way to make this work over and over and over again. And you got to trust that. You have to trust yourself. Like, you've built the business. Most businesses in this country, I think it's like, I apologize if this number is completely wrong, but I think it's like 80% of businesses fail before 5 years. I think it's something along the lines of that. And it's like, you've made it to that point. You've beaten most people. Getting to $1 million, I think less than 10% of businesses in the country do that. Get to $2, $3, $4, $5 million. You're in rarefied air. And when you're able to accomplish that, it's important when you're met with these challenges or you're met with these situations that you're like, man, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can get through this. You have. You've gotten through every single challenge has gotten you to that point, and all of those things have developed those experiences and that have made you into the business owner that you are today. So that was one of the big things I got from that experience. But another fun thing that I experienced with it, anyone who's interested, I actually I did a voice transcription of my experience. So I took notes while I was on it because you're cognizant of what's going on. Like, you're able to take notes and stuff like that. But what I did was I recorded my experience afterwards on my drive home, and I took those descriptions and I plugged it into ChatGPT to create the actual visions that I saw. And it was pretty incredible how accurate it was. So anyone who is interested, you can go check out my Instagram. There's a picture of a giant neon blue koi pond. If you swipe through, there's a bunch of the things that I did experience. But one of the things for me that was the most incredible, and I've talked about this plenty of times in the podcast, is, I still have that desire to go to vet school. I still, like, for me, the full circle completion of this is getting that DVM. And I remember I'm sitting there and I'm seeing, these galactic visions and all these crazy things. And all of a sudden I'm seeing this slithering snake going up and down around something. And it became clearer and clearer to me. And it was this big V with a scepter in the middle with a snake around it. And for those of you who are familiar, that's the symbol for veterinary medicine. And so for me, it was kind of like, all right, this is something that's been in the back of my mind. And, the more I've been thinking about it, the more I know that having this as part of my business is something that it's part of who I am. It's part of what has driven. It's how I got here. I worked at an animal hospital. It's how I built this business. I've just taken a long roundabout way to get there. And so, the ayahuasca kind of showed me that I still want to do this. So this is something that I am planning on doing. But yeah, the challenge stuff and really pushing yourself to do things that force you out of complacency, force you out of that comfort zone are so important. And again, I was terrified to try the ayahuasca. Again, on the verge of tears. Like, I was so scared of doing it. I would do ayahuasca every day for the rest of my life if I could. It was the most incredible experience of my life. So anyone who is interested in it, is thinking about doing it, you can DM me. I'm happy to have a conversation. But the big takeaway from this is do things that challenge yourself. You're going to grow. Your business is going to challenge you. You can do this. You can push through this. You've made it this far. You just got to figure out a way through it.
Well, and sometimes those challenges that come along, they're external, right? A lot of times they're external to what we're doing. They were just operating. A lot of times our businesses don't exist in a vacuum. But other times they're intentional by us to try and get some new information. And I think you're going back to that word complacency, doing things that scare you, whether that's ayahuasca or not, right? We have to decide what that's going to be. But if I'm feeling a little unsure about where things are, if I'm feeling like things aren't progressing, sometimes we've got to kick the hornet's nest just to see what comes out. Sometimes we do have to make something happen. And adding a new service like this, a completely different side of pet care, I'm sure, you're going like, it's something that you've always wanted to do, but you have that overall grand vision of being the one-stop shop with this. How do you communicate that, though, of going, who are we as a company? Because there is that difference in, you hear people go, oh, you need to niche down as specific as possible in your business. Niche, get as specific as possible. If you could do it with just a single breed of dog with specific health and behavior issues, that's better for your business versus the do everything, be everything business. And, you've really leaned into that and are continuing to lean into that side of things. So why is that the vision that you see is important to you and your company?
Not to make it about money, but Amazon is $1 trillion company. So, there is a reason that no, but jokes about money aside, I think that we as a company, my team and I are very close. I've always been very lucky to have good relationships with my team members. So I'm very open about, I'm not this like secretive CEO working in I am working on an offsite location where I am working on things and we have projects that we're working on.
But it's not an underground bunker, right? We can be clear about that.
Colin, if I had the cash for an underground bunker, I would absolutely. One day we might be doing a podcast from an underground bunker. But that aside, I've always believed that your team, in order for them to believe in the vision, they need to understand your vision. And that's through really, really good communication. So I've always done my best. My best is not always good enough, but I've always done my best to make sure that they understand that. So we've always talked about what our long-term goal is. And so, it takes some special people to be patient because these, we're not taking on, $100 million in funding yet to build this thing out, because I want to make sure that every step that we take, we are creating a well-oiled machine. Because, if you don't fix your problems, when your business grows, your problems grow with your business. So you got to make sure you've got everything dialed in. And that's what we're really focused on, is doing that and really being able to make sure that as a company grows and does that, it's important that you are fixing the issues as you grow. And so I've spent a lot of time on the sideline and on the daycare and boarding side, watching. And I've watched companies in New York City scale up to 20 locations and then boom, they're bankrupt. And then I've watched companies scale up their dog walking. They buy up a bunch of dog walking companies, but everything's so fragmented. And then the dog gets injured or this happens or that happens. And even with Wag and Rover, I know, everyone has their thoughts and feelings about Wag and Rover. And, it started with a great idea. They wanted to make dog walking and pet sitting accessible for pet parents. And they wanted to create a way where people who were passionate about working with dogs could do that. And so I think, I'm friendly with the guys who started WAG. And I remember having a conversation with him and, asking him about it, being like, is this what you envisioned? He was like, no, not originally. But at the same time, when you're walking 1 million dogs a year, it's almost statistically impossible for something to go not go wrong. Like things are going to happen. But the big thing for me in watching that, and, yes, there are times when I pick myself for not being first to market with something like that. But at the same time, there's a reason pets.com doesn't exist and people go to Chewy and Amazon. You learn from the mistakes of, the people who came before you. So for me, it's about creating systems that are built with integrity and ethics in mind, and making sure that, because at the end of the day, I always use this analogy. If I'm running a Best Buy and my employee screws up and they knock over a $3,000 TV, we have insurance. The TV will get replaced. As long as nobody got hit by the TV, everyone's fine. With what we do for a living, if you screw up and something goes wrong, you're impacting a living thing. You're impacting the life of an animal that people genuinely care about. This is a part of someone's family. And so that's something that we take it so seriously. This is something where, we take that trust. That's something that is not to be taken lightly. People are trusting you with part of your family. And it's something that, in scaling this business, I think about every day. Like I like to say that my job is to be anxious about everything that can go wrong in this business. And boy, am I good at it. It's so important to keep those things in mind when you're scaling and when you're sharing and building that vision, that it always comes back to safety. Everything we do comes back to safety. And it's something that, is beyond important to me, is because one, my name's on the business. So it's not like Joe Schmo, who is a manager who made a mistake, is going to be in the news, but it's me, it's my company. I need to be able to sleep at night. I can't go to sleep knowing that we're not doing everything to make sure that everybody is safe and all the dogs are safe. And look, at the end of the day, we have team members who do get injured. It does happen. You're dealing with animals. It's part of what we do. And it's important that people, it's important to manage those expectations. But everything that does happen, we make sure we learn from it. We do debriefs and stuff like that. So as we grow, we continue to learn. And those growing pains are how companies get better. And man, it is frustrating though from time to time when I see the ads about, another Rover thing or another WAG thing. And it's just like, when you're, WAG, a Rover got acquired for what was it? It was $2.7 billion.
Yeah.
That part of that money, and, shout out to BlackRock for buying everything. But, they could do better. And so our goal of what we're doing is, I don't want to compete on price. I don't want to compete on, we have this special magic service. I want to compete on people trust us. We have created something where people trust our company. I have people who come to me, be like, 15 of my neighbors say you guys are amazing. Like, I don't have any questions. Sign me up. I want to build on that. I want to build on trust, and I want to compete on quality of service. I want to raise the bar in what everybody does. I want to have it so that, I welcome competition. I'm happy to do it, but I want people to compete on the right thing. Because if I hear of one more dog daycare, one more boarding place where they don't have staff there overnight, I'm going to lose my mind. It is infuriating, because I know how much you make. I know how much these places are able to make. And the fact that they think it's remotely okay to not have an employee overnight when there are dogs in the building it's abhorrent. It's a disgusting money grab. You're not even saving that much money. You figure a 10-hour shift, even if you're paying someone $20 an hour or $30 an hour, it's not that much money. And to me, it's selfish. It's not centered around the well-being of animals. And again, I hope that when we are able to scale, and when the larger doggy daycare and boarding companies see that we are taking a larger portion of the market share, they do better. And, I'm not looking to put anybody out of business. Like, that's not how I operate. Like, I want a big piece of the pie for sure, and I'm coming for it. But I hope that eventually what happens is, look, children used to work in factories and lose their limbs. Now there are labor laws. Things happen, things change, people evolve, societies evolve. And I think it's time for the industry to evolve as well. And I think that there's a lot that can change. There's a lot that can be improved upon. And I'm not arrogant enough, but maybe arrogant enough to hope that we can be the catalyst for that change. I hope that we can force other companies through competition and maybe temporary loss of business where they do have to step it up, where they do have to do a better job, where they do have to make sure their team members are trained in a way that they can handle emergencies so that they're lead people. I mean, I can't tell you how many times we've had an emergency. I'm at the facility at 2:00 in the morning. I brought dogs to the ER for all sorts of things over medical issues that the client didn't even know the dog had. It's that level of care, that level of passion, that commitment to doing better is what we're all about. And I think it's so important that the industry does continue to evolve because, I mean, it's changed. Everything has changed. I mean, everyone used to feed their dog scraps, and then we invented dog food. And now you've got amazing things like the farmer's dog, where it's all this healthy, whole foods that you're giving your pet, and it continues to evolve. And, I look forward to seeing where the industry is in 20 years. In 30 years, there's not going to be an industry because the robots will have taken over and all of our jobs will be gone. So we've got about 25 years to really grow this and get this right before the robots come in.
No, you hire the robots. Remember, that's the goal, is that you become a robot management company. Anyway,
that's the plan.
Okay. Well, we often wonder, well, how do I make a difference in something? Right? How do I actually be different? And we think, oh, well, I'll just get another certification. I'll just go and compete on price, or I'll just go rebrand, or I'll just go change my marketing message. And that's actually what's going to make me different than everybody else. But you said that we want to compete on trust. We want to compete on that level of trust that people have for us. Now, that's all those back-end systems. That's all of that planning. That's all of that design. That's all of the research. That's all of the when something does happen, doing a debrief on what went wrong and how do we do something different and better. And so when we look to go, there's so many competitors out there, quote unquote competitors. There's so many new people in the market that's already awash with so much. We go, well, we can look at what they're doing. You talked about how you watched people rise and fall, people come and go. You were doing all of this research about what is the standard? What is the standard of what people expect? Now, how do I change that standard and make it better? And you're right. When other companies start to look at what we're doing and go, man, they're offering this exceptionally high level of service with all of this stuff built in, they're still making money. And importantly, from an economic perspective, people are willing to pay for that.
Yes.
I wonder if there's a niche here, if there's something that we can start doing better. And if they're doing it, we can do it as well. And so you can actually sometimes drag the industry kicking and screaming along while you're making people happy and making sure their pets have a great experience.
100%. I think that's the biggest thing. So one thing, you said one thing. Stop competing on price. It's a race to the bottom. You're going to lose. Stop trying to undercut each other. You're not doing anybody any favors. I can tell you our prices are leaps and bounds beyond the competition. It's interesting to watch because I have plenty of former employees who've started their own like dog walking companies and stuff like that. And so like I watch them and I see what they're doing and, they try to undercut price wise. But at the end of the day, I've got something that you can't just change a number on your website. And that's I have people's trust. People trust me. People trust my name. People trust my brand. There's a reason why what kind of shoes do I have? Asics, I think. I've worn the same pair of Asics for like 10 years. I literally buy them 3 at a time. I trust them. I know them. It's the same thing. I wear the exact same shorts, the exact same t-shirt. I wear the same pair of Under Armour shorts and underwear every day. I know what it is. I trust it. It's reliable. When you establish that, it doesn't matter what you're charging. And yes, there's going to be people who say you're expensive. I mean, in terms of our boarding prices, we're expensive. We're not, we're $150 a night for cage-free boarding. But with that, you're getting 24-hour care. Your dog is never alone. There's a lot of people who are like, oh, I can go here and get this. By all means, if that's what you need for your budget, I totally understand. And my goal is to scale it up to the point where we can offer a more cost-effective business model. But right now, it's similar to what Tesla did when they first launched their products. They started with a very, very, very expensive car, and then as they scale, they were able to create more affordable vehicles. I mean, they're not super cheap, but it's still, you're able to do that when you charge more money. So I think competing on price is one thing that you got to get out of because it's just a terrible space to be in. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's the way you can compete best is through, like Colin, you were saying, all those plans you put into place, all the time you spend with training your team, making sure that you got all of the right things in place, checks and balances, making sure you have an on-call veterinarian that you work with. Do you know where the local, emergency clinic is? Is your team trained to recognize symptoms for things like bloat or kennel cough or all these other things? There's so many iterations of this that have to happen for you to get to a point where it's like, all right, this happened, follow the protocol. This happened, follow the protocol. Like it removes you as the leader of your company from having to be that decision bottleneck. I become that bottleneck again because we're new and I'm making those decisions. But as we document, a year from now, we'll be in a different spot. And once we have that book of business that's done, then we open the second location and then that's easy. So it makes it so you can scale your company. It makes it so you could do things and grow in a safe way. And even if you're not planning on scaling, if you want to be able to sleep at night, making sure you invest in all this infrastructure and all this stuff so that your team does know what to do when you're not there. You need to train them so they can think like you and operate like you. That's the most important thing you could do for your company's success.
Our friends at NAPS want you to know that their 2025 conference will take place February 28th through March 2nd, 2025 in Tempe, Arizona. The conference theme this year is Enrich and Elevate. And their goal is to bring together industry leaders with session topics that are idea-focused and on a wide range of subjects to foster both learning and inspiration for your mind, body, and business. And guess what? You are invited. Register today at petsitters.org. Well, and then talking about it to other people, right? Again, you get that to going, okay, I've got my certification, I've got all this training, I've got all these protocols, I've got my SOPs in line. I've got to tell people kind of about what that gets them, right? Of going just, you don't want to really just walk around into going into meet and greets or meeting new clients and plopping down 300 pages and going, look, let's start at page 1 so you can start to trust me, right? We do have to then go, I need to be able to communicate this through marketing messaging, through my social media, through a quick video about why all of this is important. And pet parents do see that. They do see that and they go, oh, I want that. Yes, sure. Sometimes all they care about is price. And at that point, we can do nothing for them if our prices are high. But we are trying to just at least say, this option is out there. This option is out there. So why? Well, so that maybe when they go talk to somebody else and that person doesn't have those plans, they start thinking in their mind of going, oh, well, these other people do. Maybe I need to go back and talk to them and learn more about this so that I can have that peace of mind. And then as a business going, okay, I'm offering more, I'm doing more. I need to be communicating and having clear lines of what each of these services are and what it gets you. Because now that you're offering boarding and daycare, a lot of people in the pet care industry and dog walking and pet sitting view that as competition. And so, you, Dan, have kind of created your own competition, internal competition, so to speak. Yeah. How are you finding balancing, or do you have to, shuffle one potential client from one service to another, or what's it like, guiding everything there?
So initially we were worried a little bit about the cannibalization of one aspect of the business to the other. And we found that it's actually the opposite. Whereas they used to go to another facility, it's, oh no, you could board your dog with us. Or if if your dog is sick and can't come to our facility, we can come walk your dog. Or if you need your dog picked up or dropped off, it's again, goes back to Amazon. If I can't buy it on Amazon, I have to really want it to go get my credit card and put that information in. You want to make it as easy as possible for your clients to be able to utilize your service. And the best way to do that is to add value across the board. So for us, being able to have it where we know that our clients don't have to worry about, if they don't want to, dropping their dog off in the morning. We can come to the house, we'll get the dog, we'll feed them breakfast, we'll bring them to the daycare, we'll groom them, we'll train them, whatever you need, we've got you covered. And so, I definitely, it's a different avatar, the people who want in-home pet sitting versus the people who want boarding versus the people who want dog walking versus people who want daycare. Some of it is their dog doesn't do well with other dogs. Some of it is, I just want my dog to be at home. Other people are like, I want my dog to socialize. By adding different services, by expanding your business, you open it up to, being able to assist those additional client avatars. And that in turn helps you grow your bottom line, helps you grow the business and grows your reach. And then from there, you're able to grow your referral system, which is immense. We just built out a pretty big referral program that we're doing and we're launching that in the next couple of weeks. So we've got one built out for dog walking, for pet sitting, for training, for daycare, for boarding, and clients and staff all get rewarded through it. And, it's having all of these different things and not worrying about, again, I've never worried about competition. I've always been cognizant of other companies and stuff like that. But it's like, you spend time worrying about what somebody else is doing. That's time you're not spending on your business. And that's a waste of time. Be aware of what your competition is doing. Be aware of what the competitive landscape looks like. Be aware of what the prices are. And, make sure you price yourself accordingly. But again, competing on price is a race to the bottom. Nobody ever wins that. And, in terms of like looking at it as competition, for those of you out there who are doing dog walking and pet sitting, partner with a daycare. Hey, we can do pickups and drop offs for you. Hey, we can do this for you, this for you. There's ways you can work symbiotically with these companies without looking at it as, oh, they're taking away from us. And if you're thinking about coming in this direction, do it. It's a lot of work. I will tell you this. It is a lot more money to get started opening a facility than it took me. I think I spent maybe $50 starting my business on the dog walking side. And that was on neon pink paper and staples. And that was basically how I started, where the number that it cost me to open this business had a bunch more zeros behind it. So it's something that the money's out there. You can get a bank loan, you can get an SBA loan. You could take on investors as long as you know who you're getting in bed with. It's definitely something doable. But if you're somebody who does not have the experience and you are interested in doing it, make sure you have the funds to hire the right people. Because I can tell you, if you don't know what you're doing and you try to cut corners, people and animals are going to get hurt, and that shouldn't happen. So if you are somebody who is thinking about it, make sure you think long and hard about it. Because the reason I think the majority of us got into this business is for the love of animals. And so make sure that if you are going to be doing this, make sure that you have the right team in place. Make sure you're doing temperament tests. Make sure you've got the right checks and balances in place to make sure that your team knows how to safely navigate, a scuffle. They know how to safely navigate a reactive dog. Make sure everybody knows the right things to do, because at the end of the day, remember, we're dealing with living things. We're not dealing with a product that if it falls over and breaks, we got to just replace it. You can't replace somebody's pet. That's just not how it works. And it's so important that is the cornerstone of everything that we do in this industry.
Well, so, you'd mentioned a little bit about, finding the property, hiring some staff, and this took you a whole heck of a lot longer and a lot more money to get off the ground than you originally anticipated. Can you walk us through just a little bit about what that was like putting everything together? Because you had a vision for also doing kennel-free boarding and daycare facility, right? So what was it like, you kind of getting your mind around what that would look like, how you did that research, and then then doing the build out and everything,
Absolutely. So talk about being a novice. Before doing this, I don't think I'd ever looked at construction plans, let alone understood them, like knowing what's a pipe, what's a wall, what's a door, and all these things. So I was very fortunate to have some really, really good advisors from the construction side. I've got some great people that I was able to work with that were able to help me through it. I also had some terrible people. I had an absolutely horrific relationship with my architect. And he was an absolute nightmare to deal with and dropped the ball basically every chance he could, and definitely cost me about a year of time. So who you pick is incredibly important. And then, so we were very fortunate. Through the pandemic, we got our EIDL loan, which I'm sure many people were able to receive that. So we used part of the EIDL loan, and then we got the ERTC, which is the Employee Retention Tax Credit. For those of you who, I'm sure everyone's getting constant calls about it from people trying to sell you sign up. It is legitimate. Just make sure you go with a legitimate person who is doing it. So we got that and that money. And then I also took some private funding. So I pieced the money together. I had a great team. I went and I looked at a ton of locations. I did a lot of research online. And I had an idea. The idea that I started with was we were going to build an entire second floor in our building. So we were going to have suites upstairs for the dogs that couldn't be cage free. And then we were going to have our play fields downstairs where we did the cage free and the daycare. Unfortunately, we weren't able, we would have needed an additional $1 million to do that. and because New York is obscenely expensive. And but we weren't able to obtain the funds for that. So I had to pivot and switch over to, all right, we're just doing the cage-free model. We're just doing cage-free boarding. We're just doing doggy daycare. So, we had to deal with the town. We had to get, different permits. So I brought lawyers in. I dealt with architects, contractors, and all that kind of stuff. And then figuring out what's the flow of traffic going to look like. I never thought I'd have so many conversations about parking spots. The amount of conversations I had about how many parking spots were outside was more than I ever thought I would in my entire life. Making sure, bathrooms are ADA compliant, making sure that you have the right flooring, the fencing. How are you going to manage the smell in the building? How are you going to be able to clean things effectively? How are you going to ensure safety? Like our facility, my biggest thing is dogs escaping. That is my nightmare. My nightmare is that phone call. The dog got out. Knock on wood. Not going to happen. For us, a dog in a playfield has to go through 8 doors to get out of our building. It is Fort Knox in there. I made sure it is next to impossible. Now, if there's an emergency, our team is able to quickly get out of the building without there being an issue. But for dogs, I made the fences are 6 feet high. All the different ways that we did this, you have to think about every single detail and you have to obsess over it. My old office was covered in blueprints and notes and this and that. And the whiteboards were full of designs and layouts and all this stuff. And you really got to think about as many things as you can. And I think part of that was because we were doing something relatively new. I'm blanking on his name. He runs a couple of facilities in Chicago. He was actually the guy that I originally got the cage-free boarding idea from. This isn't like some original idea that I came up with. And I remember him talking about it. And I was like, that's amazing. That's an incredible idea. I love this. I love the idea. So for us, the dogs are only created 3 times a day. That's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that's to ensure, you reduce the risk of bloat, no resource guarding, give them time to digest and give them a little bit of a break. But I love the idea of these dogs being able to be in a playfield. We fill the playfield with beds and stuff overnight. And so it was so appealing to me. And then I was like, I have no idea how to do this. And so I had to talk to a lot of people who have done things like this. And because this wasn't as common of a model, I had to figure a lot of it out on my own. And a lot of it was trial and error. But again, it's, from end to end, it was finding the right architect, finding the right contractor, finding the right building. You need a real estate attorney. Then you need an attorney for dealing with the town and getting the proper permits. And then you need the proper funding. You need a good accountant to help you manage all of the money. You name it, I made a mistake at every step of the way. I had a difficult time with my contractor because we originally were going to be this big multi-million-dollar job, and it went down to not as big of a job. And all of a sudden I saw that I was no longer a priority. And I had to become a version of myself that I don't like. And I had to be a bit of an angrier person, and I had to get a little bit more forceful with people. But I learned that in some of this work, you have to kind of be a bit of a monster. But yeah, no, it was a great learning experience. And anyone who's interested in doing it, don't. It's a nightmare. No, I'm very happy I did it. But that being said, again, to go back to Alex Formosi, when he talks about when things are really hard, we're in it and it's like, oh my God, I can't believe how difficult this is. Remember that when it's this hard for you, it's hard for somebody else. Whereas, over the years, I can't tell you how many employees that I've fired due to them not being good employees. And I see them go out and start a dog walking company. And I'm like, I'm not the kind of person who's going to publicly bash a company. I'm not naming names here, but I'm not going to go into a Facebook group and be like, oh, this person got fired for this reason, or they got fired because they did this. That's just not how I am. But with this, I know that the majority of my staff, if they get fired for not doing their job correctly, aren't going to pop up a Facebook page next week and a website and start a daycare, because I know it takes years to do. It takes hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to do. So it does give you a little bit of a barrier of protection for your business, and it does give you a little bit more security. But again, it's terribly expensive. It's draining. It's, I took us 3 years to get this place open. It cost me a lot of money. Every penny I have is in this business. And, my wife and I even relocated out to Long Island. We were living in Brooklyn at the time. We moved out here. So my commute is 90 seconds. I'm right around the corner from the facility. I eat, breathe, and sleep that place. And it's, for anyone who is interested in doing it, I'm joking when I say don't do it. It's something you better love it. You better love what you do, because on the days when you are ready to set your hair on fire because you just don't think you can handle it anymore, that passion is going to be there to sustain you. Because if you don't have that passion, you don't have that love for it, you're not going to push through. You're going to give up. And, when you're doing something like this, you have to care. You have to care so much. And it can't just be about the money. It's something that, again, it's why I'm vehemently against selling to private equity. I mean, I hope one day I'm not coming in here and be like, well, Colin, I got $100 million and I'm out. But it's something that you got to care. You have to care a lot. It's, I've literally poured my blood, sweat, and tears in this business over the years. I have more scars than I could imagine on me. I've lost relationships. I've lost friendships. I've missed birthdays. I've missed a lot of things in my life in building this business. And, people talk about balance. It's fine. That's, balance is for some people. But if you want to create something immensely great, if you want to change an industry, if you want to really be a part of creating something that moves something in a different direction, you're going to sacrifice. And, the last 15 years have been a sacrifice for sure. But I love it. It's given me incredible opportunities. I get to talk to amazing people like you, Colin, and I get to, I'm lucky enough where my business has survived all these years, and I'm able to, share the wisdom of my mistakes. And so people can hopefully learn from the things that I did wrong. And then, I'm happy to be able to share, because I definitely, again, I say this to you every time. I wish you existed when I first started, because, man, there was like Kristen Morrison and her books and a few other people. But other than that, there weren't many resources. And, I'm happy to be able to, help people in any way I can through sharing my experiences.
Well, I really appreciate you when you do come on and sharing, and that we can learn from your mistakes. No, I'm kidding.
I'm happy to share.
No, but I think it is important in that when we look to go, what can I do in my business? What can I do differently? It does start with just talking to people. And I think too often we get so caught up in our own head of going, well, I don't want to talk to them because what if they do this or that, or I don't, they're too big, they're too important to spend time on me. Asking questions, just having a few moments to contribute something and to get that feedback is really what it takes. Because otherwise, then we do just exist in our own little bubble, and that's we can take the in-house method to the extreme where we never share with anybody, never talk with anybody, and we never get any feedback. Instead, going, I do need to go a little bit outside of this, and I do need to get some experience. I need to talk to a bunch of people. And when you do that, right, when you do go through this experience, like you've done, Dan, of going, man, I had to learn about parking spaces and traffic flow. Well, you know what that does? That means that when you open that second location, you already have a few questions and you have some thoughts about what happened last time.
I know exactly what I want now.
I want to see the notebook that's just filled with your sketches and ideas of traffic flow. I know, I bet that exists.
Man, so many whiteboard sessions of arguing with my project manager of like, no, it's got to go this way.
But that's what happens when we become a novice again in our business, is all of a sudden we've learned better for next time. And then when we look about opportunity costs, well, I just went through a bunch of crap in order to get here of learning and stress and anxiety.
Yeah.
I don't have to go through as much the second time or the third time or the fourth time.
Yes.
Right? And that's where we can start speeding up a little bit, and we can start to move forward a bit faster in our visions and our goals that we have.
Yeah, it definitely makes a big difference. And it's the same thing. I remember, like, my first angry client to now, like if there's an angry client that my managers are stuck with, get me on the phone with them. I can talk to people all day long. I know exactly what to say. I know how to do it because I know how to, approach the situation from years and years of customer service experience. And it's the same thing with doing this. I'm confident that I'm ready to go to our next location. Now, before we build our next location, we're finally building our software platform. That's we are going to be doing an investment round for that, for the software side of things early next year, but don't tell anybody. But so, our goal is to, again, continue to improve, continue to streamline, learn from those mistakes. And I was worried about, I'll tell a quick little story. So I had a tech company in the restaurant space, and we had this amazing piece of IP. And we were a waitlist management platform for restaurants. And we were one of the first companies to do it. It was us, BuzzTable, and No Wait. And at the time, all the companies have since been acquired. But at the time, what we wanted to do was I wanted to put a charitable spin on it. So we had this idea. We inserted a ghost spot every 10 spots in line. So you could jump to the front of the line without any of the perceived skipping by making a donation to a charity. Now, instead of talking to everybody about it, me and my partner were so paranoid about the idea getting stolen and utilized that we had to protect it. We ended up missing out on a ton of great opportunities. And we finally did come out with it. We got international press, ABC News, The Guardian, CNN, NBC. It was everywhere. We seeded a couple million people through the platform. We ended up selling the company eventually. But to this day, I still know that if we had talked about it to more people, we would have been able to turn it into something bigger. And at the end of the day, as a pet care business, unless you are literally pulling a new leash or creating something that has never been seen before, we're all doing the same stuff. It's just different levels of support and different levels of training. That's it. We're walking dogs. We're bathing dogs. We're doing sleepovers at their house. There's not anything proprietary that anyone's really doing differently. It's maybe we train people differently. We do this differently or that. But at the end of the day, you got to stop looking at your competition like, they're here to destroy your business. I'm friendly with most of my competitors. I know most of the people in the space. And, it's something where it's like, I had that, it's me or them mentality for so long. One, that was me being immature and just kind of a jackass. But two, it's like, it doesn't operate like that. Not everyone is going. First of all, we're not in a country where there's one company serving, except for Amazon, one company serving everybody. You know what I mean? Like, there's always going to be competition. Competition's how you get better. If you have competition, chances are you're probably not that good. If there's nobody who's coming in and competing with you, you're not striving to improve. I love competition. I love seeing like, oh, look what this person's doing. Like I've seen since we launched our membership program at our facility, a couple of the other local facilities, all of a sudden the membership programs that they're advertising, all of a sudden they're doing this that we're doing. And it's what happens when new people come in and shake stuff up. There's going to be, let's get better. Let's improve. And it's the same thing. I welcome competition. I welcome conversations. And anybody who's listening, I am happy. DM me. I can't tell you how many times people have DM'd me. I'm like, if I have a long drive, I'm like, shoot me your number. Let's get on a call. I struggle with consulting just in general. There's now big shout out to Doug. I love Doug. Doug's amazing. If you're interested in consulting, go to Doug. Michelle's great too. Doug's fantastic. A lot of people out there who do consulting who, if you're a novice and you're just starting out, there's plenty of people out there who can help you. But I can tell you from experience, if you're going to hire a consultant, make sure they've been where you want to go and they're not in the exact same state as you and they're just good at sales. Because there's a lot of people out there who can do a lot of yapping and they're great talkers, but at the end of the day, they can't deliver. That's not Doug. I can tell you that. I love Doug. Doug's fantastic. Michelle's wonderful also. But anyone who is, so I'm not trying to knock those guys, but from a consulting standpoint, I do consulting. I'm also happy to just hop on a call with somebody. So if you are somebody out there, shoot me a DM. We'll go over my contact info and I'm sure it'll be in the show notes. But I'm happy to always help somebody out because at the end of the day, what I'm looking for, my long-term thing, and this is, again, I go back to Alex Hormozi all the time. I love his model. And this is what my long-term plan is. Once I get about 5 of these facilities up and running, I am going to be launching a massive, not consulting, but program where people can access a lot of our materials in terms of how we build the business, how we scale the businesses, because I want to start training people. I want to start training people on how to build a pet care business the way I want to do it, on how to find clients the way I want to do it. Because if I'm opening 100 locations, I'm going to need you to come join my team. And I want you to learn how to do that. And if you are good at it and your business does well, and we can acquire your business, I've helped you grow. I taught you how I want you to be a part of that because my long-term goal is I don't like franchising, but I am a big remove any political or religious or other affiliations from it, but I do like Chick-fil-A's model. I like the way they operate because I think they make it accessible. It's only $10,000 to buy in. Now, it is harder to get a Chick-fil-A franchise than it is to get into Stanford University, but you have to be an active owner. You cannot be an absentee owner. You have to have worked in the business for, I think, a minimum of 3 years. And Chick-fil-A does the build up. They take care of all the expenses. I like that idea. Not knocking people who have money, but I think the people who do this business best are the people who have been in the business. And I want to give those people a chance to be able to be a part of having a little piece of the pie. And so that is my long-term goal, is I want to build this out in a way where people who work for me can eventually be owner operators, where they can have some semblance of ownership in a property and can have that. And they don't need $1.2 million to open it up like they do in McDonald's. So that is my long-term goal. I do want to have this where it's an accessible thing, but it's an accessible thing for people to be a part of this through being a part of the business and really believing in what we do. And that is providing just exceptional levels of pet care for all the animals that we come in contact with. So that's my 20-year goal. And we'll call it 20 years, my 20-year goal. So that is what I am thinking about. Again, I want to share everything that I have learned and that will be coming in the next 4 or 5 years. But, I think I've seen way too many fly-by-night coaches. I complain about it pretty constantly, actually, how much I can't stand people talking about things that they haven't done. I find it offensive. I find it irresponsible. And I don't think they should be doing what they're doing, because if you are not able to build and scale a massive business, you should not be teaching someone how to build and scale a massive business. If you haven't done it, why are you talking about it? That is the end of my rant there. Sorry.
I think it is important when we look to get education, like you said, has that person been or is going or has done where I want to go as well? Can they help?
Yes.
And how are they going to teach me, right? There are a lot of programs out there that are very like, here's the cookie cutter, here's the 5-step program that you do. Is it a more like one-on-one consulting, grow individualized to your plan? Like there's definitely a lot that goes into that. And we have to go, is that what I want? Is this person doing what I want to do? And really digging into that to make sure that we know exactly, eyes wide open, what we're getting into. But that's important in everything that we do in our business. Eyes wide open. Yes. What am I getting into? Am I I need to learn because a lot of times we don't even know what we don't know. We don't even know the right or wrong questions to ask. So we just have to get started, right? We just have to get going and doing something. And I think, that idea of going, need good access to information and education is always important as a business, and making sure that we get it from good resources, right? That's critical, so that we know that what we're doing is appropriate and not just the musings of some random person on the internet.
Or anybody who just plugged something into ChatGPT and then spewed out a course.
Right. Well, so on. Dan, I know you mentioned people can send you a message and get in touch with you. I really want to thank you for your time today and for sharing this, and really the mindset behind the why and some of the intricacies of making it work, and even the problems that you faced along the way. But again, this is a massive topic, and you've got a lot to say on this and so many other things about dog walking and pet care and whatever, and growing fantastic beards. So if people are interested in getting in touch with you and seeing all the cool work that you guys are doing over there, how best can they do that?
So we're at Dan's Pet Care on pretty much all the social platforms. So Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, I'm still struggling with. We're on there, but can't seem to crack that code. But yeah, so Dan's Pet Care, if you're interested in what we're doing, check out the website, just danspetcare.com. If you have any questions for me personally, you feel free to DM me on Instagram. That's the best way to do that. And that's just my full name, Daniel Reitman. Friend me on Facebook. There's a chance I'm friends with you on Facebook. I try to friend every single person in the industry. When I see like, CEO at dog something, I'm like, done, friend. So if you ever do get a random Facebook request from me, it is actually me. And I'm always just looking to build my network. But yeah, DM me on Instagram. You could message me on Facebook and go to my website, just danielreitman.com. It is wildly outdated, but there is a contact page there. But yeah, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to chat. And Colin, as always, I appreciate you having me on to let me rant and rave about all things. And I enjoy these conversations. And again, seriously, you do you guys do such a massive service for this industry. Again, I say it every time. I wish you guys existed when I started, but I'm happy to be able to contribute to the work that you guys are doing. So keep doing what you're doing, because it's amazing. You're helping a lot of people, and I'm happy to be here and always enjoy our chats.
Well, thank you very much, Dan. That means an awful lot. It really does. I really appreciate you coming on and always sharing. And so we'll have to schedule another one for next time and get caught up and see how everything is going by then. So, Dan, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Colin.
When Dan said that they don't want to compete on price, that they want to compete on trust, I really had to sit with that for a little bit. Because often we think, what differentiates us from somebody else? Is it our certifications? Is it our price? Is it how long we've been in business? Is it our branding? Is it our colors? Is it our services? Is it this? Is it that? But at the end of it, it really is, who does the client trust more to meet their specific needs? Everything else should be focused on that. Getting the client's trust and maintaining that through our excellent service. So yes, we do need to take into account our branding, our colors, our photos, our language, the name, the services, how those are described, because at each step, what we're doing is we have another building block, another brick in the trust that client has for us. And then we get to step back and see if it's stable enough for the client to move forward or if we missed the mark. Trust in this industry is absolutely everything. We'd like to thank today's sponsors, Time to Pet and the National Association of Professional Pet Sitters, for making today's show possible. And we really want to thank you for listening. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll be back again soon.